And welcome back. We are so excited to hear from the incredible Vanessa Cardenas. I'm going to introduce her and a little bit of her presentation, but she's got it. She's going to really teach us so much today. So Vanessa is a highly experienced C-suite executive, mentor, coach, speaker, and instructor with a degree in industrial and organizational psychology, and she lives in New York. She's a founder and CEO of Understanding Ear LLC and empowers individuals to heal from betrayal, amplify their authenticity, find love and happiness on their own terms. And she is, when I think of compassion and I think of power, I think of Vanessa. I really do. She brings, just with her energy, plug it into that, you will start to feel that power. So I'm so excited to turn the time over to you, Vanessa, and we can hear from you and your experience.
Wonderful. Kaylee, thank you so much. It's such an honor to get to know you as a moderator of your amazing Facebook group, Humans Navigating Betrayal. Oh, absolutely love it. And for those that are participants of that Facebook group, you might get to know me because I start off all of my responses to your comments, if I may. And if I may really resonated with me when I was going through betrayal, because I found that the people around me just automatically gave me their advice, unprompted, sometimes unsolicited. They felt the need that they could just all over me, and I didn't ask for it. And I know in the Facebook group, people come in and they ask their questions or they say their story. And sometimes they're looking for validation. Sometimes they're looking for that opportunity to hear from someone else. And I always like to start with, if I may. And I usually end, I try to, with take what you need and toss the rest, because everybody's relationship is different. Everybody's betrayal is different. Everybody's at a different spot in where their recovery is or when their discovery day was. Some people are still in the state of shock of what just happened, and others are years removed from it, but it's still right here. It still hurts. Kaylee, thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to speak. The talk that I'm going to give today, I believe you will remember forever. I believe that it's foundational stuff. And while I speak more to the men, it is applicable to women. So put on your listening ears. I want you to sit back and relax and take in the information as if you are going to share it with someone else, because you use a different part of your brain when you need to share it with somebody else. If you're just listening to it passively, it goes in one ear and out the other. I don't want that for you. I want you to be able to retain the information. And in order to retain it, you got to be able to share it with someone else. Whether you do or not is inconsequential, but just the act of, I'm going to listen to this because I need to share it with someone else. Think of it when you're watching TV. You're on the couch, you're watching TV. You get up and go into the kitchen to get something to eat. And on your way back to the couch, you don't even remember what you were watching because you were watching passively. Now, if you and someone else are watching TV and that person gets up and you're really engrossed in the show and they come back, what did I miss? You can say what they've missed because you've listened to it differently, because you saw them get up and you knew the second they got back, they would ask a question. And now in this day and age, we can hit the pause button. For those of us, we're going to show our age, where there was no pause button and somebody would get up, oh, I got to go to the bathroom, and they'd rush to the bathroom. What I miss? So for this presentation, I would love for you to listen as if you're going to share it with someone else. So I would like to start with Viktor Frankl. He was an amazing author of an amazing book, which I suggest to all of my clients, male and female, which is Men's Search for Meaning, written decades ago, but still very, very applicable. And one of his quotes that I absolutely love is, when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Yes, I know. The betrayal happened to you. And now here you are, and you have to do all this work. Yeah, you do. You do in order to heal. You do. It's just, there's no getting around it. You can try to skirt around it, everything else. You're not going to get through it unless you actually do the work. So let me tell you a little bit about my story, just so that you know where I'm coming from. Kaylee gave me such a beautiful introduction, but I want to tell you a little bit more. First and foremost, I was addicted. I was addicted to certainty. I grew up, if you work hard and you get married and you have your kids and you have your house and you have money in the bank and you have your cars and you have your C-suite career, you're set. That's what it was supposed to be. And my world shattered with 3 words that my husband of over 2 decades said to me, completely blindsided me. I've met someone. And my whole world shattered. It just shattered. And here I was. I had a degree in psychology. I was a C-suite executive. What? How could I fall into the cesspool so deep, up to here, drowning, keeping my head above it, and just completely losing myself? I was in a state of autopilot for weeks, probably months. I just fell so hard and so deep. And everybody around me, we were talked before about that advice. Everybody around me was just throwing advice at me and telling me all kinds of things. And, self-care. And Tammy and Nathaniel talked about it yesterday on day 2 about how self-care can turn into shame, and that you can be actually shamed for not doing the right self-care, or not following, the gurus that say you're supposed to do this and this and this and this and this. And again, we go back to take what you can use, toss the rest. If it doesn't feel right to you, then don't do it. So with that being said, I fell into this hole. And I remember distinctly, I remember it as if it was yesterday. That's how, right in your heart it gets, where I laid on my bedroom floor, ugly crying. I was in so much pain, and I begged and I pleaded with God, universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, please, can I have a reprieve? I just need a reprieve. And if I get that reprieve, I promise that I will help someone else so that they don't feel this way. I knew the hurt. I felt it. I felt it in my joints. I felt it everywhere. And I cried myself to sleep, begging for sleep, because sleep is the other thing that's always missing. And if you want to know more about sleep, follow Kaylee on that, because she's got a great program on that. And I woke up the next morning feeling a little better. Whoa. And then the next day I was a little better. And then that's when I dove in deep into recovery. And I wanted to get my hands on everything I could get my hands on. So I've been certified. I dove deep into just listening and learning from all of the gurus. And I too took what I liked, what felt right to me, and I tossed the rest. And that's okay, because everybody's recovery completely different. And you just have to find the person that you resonate with. Because if you try to go on this path by yourself, it's challenging. It truly, truly is. I walked the path by myself for way too long. Then I started to incorporate a lot of other people. And there were certain people that, just like that, loved it. Other, I was like, no, not quite. And that's okay. Again, everybody's different. Everybody's absolutely different. So let me start with this. Dave got a text message from his neighbor. I am so sorry. I feel so guilty. I have been meaning to tell you, and I wanted to tell you. I've been tapping your wife day and night while you weren't home. And I feel so badly for this. And I just want you to know that I am so sorry and that I promise not to do it again. I just don't have it at home. And I know that's not an excuse, but I hope that you will accept my forgiveness and that you will understand that this will never happen again. And Dave read the text, walked up to his bedroom, unlocked his gun safe, put his gun on his lap, and his phone chimed again. Duck. Autocorrect. Not wife, Wi-Fi. The moral of that story is that immediately we think, oh, betrayed. And we go through all of those emotions. The emotions flood into us in such a way we all know what that feels like. We feel that flood come over us, and our body goes into that fight, flight, freeze mode, or fawn, because that's another one as well. But we just experience that. So I want to talk a little bit about it from a male perspective of getting that betrayal. That's why that story was Dave. So there is a wonderful website. It's called the truthaboutdeception.org. Truthaboutdeception.org. They have been running a poll for over a decade, completely anonymous, where people come in and they answer a series of questions. The questions are brilliant. They absolutely are. And what they do is they make it from male and female. And when I speak to my female clients, I refer to the female part of it. But today we're going to talk about it from a male perspective. Okay. One of the amazing statistics that I read, and I really took a long time to digest it because it really bothered me, actually more so than all of the other questions that they had, was when a woman cheats, she cheats with somebody that you both know 44% of the time. So men, that means that men in your circles are looking at your wife. They're watching your wife. They're watching your relationship. They're seeing what's going on. Whereas with men who cheat with somebody that they both know, both partners know, it's only 22%. Big difference, a really big difference, and something to consider. So that was a statistic. You can read all of the other statistics there. Again, for the sake of time, I want to make sure I get through all the material that I have. So the number one question that I get asked from my male clients is, why? Why did she cheat? They want to know. And there's a lot of variety of reasons, but I can tell you this, it was her decision. She did this. There is nothing that you did or didn't do that caused her to do this behavior. The number one reason that I pinpoint is the lack of communication that caused the cheating. She did not communicate with you. That's the issue. So the number one reason why women cheat is for an emotional reason. They feel that disconnect from you. But that's not to say that that's your fault. If she doesn't communicate with you and let you know that she feels this way, that's on her. That's absolutely on her. How did I get started working with men? I get that question a lot because I'm a woman and I didn't anticipate working with men. I thought I would work with women. I'm a woman. But there was a time my husband and I went to a gallery showing. Yes, my husband and I are still together. We went to a gallery showing of one of my closest friends who knows all about the betrayal, knows exactly what I do. And we walk into the gallery and we're looking at the art because that's what you do in a gallery. And she runs up to me and she throws her arms around me. Oh, you're here. Oh, Vanessa, it's so great to see you, this and that. And she pulls in another couple. Oh my gosh, you have got to talk to Vanessa. She has the most interesting career. She's a betrayal recovery specialist. And then I hear her name being called from the back and she goes, I got to go. And she darts, leaving me and my husband, who's used to this introduction, because there he stands and he's like, yeah, I screwed up, very much so. And we're standing in front of a couple who the woman is white as a sheet. She goes completely white. She could not wait to get away from me. And she took off. Now my husband's lingering and I'm like, gotta go, gotta go. So me and this gentleman are standing looking at this art piece. I say nothing, but I could just feel him suffering. And he clears his throat after about 10 minutes. And he says, do you work with men? And I said, I can, why not? Betrayal's betrayal. I'm thinking in my head, betrayal's betrayal. It should affect both sexes the same way and whatnot. And he says, how do I reach you? And I'm not one with business cards or anything like that. I'm like, understandingear.com. If you need my help, reach out to me, understandingear.com. Went home. Next day, my phone rings. Silence on the other line. I could hear the breathing. Then I could hear the sobbing. And that was the start of me working with John. Now, at that moment in time, I didn't know whether he was the betrayed or the betrayer. She got white as a ghost, but I don't know if she got white as a ghost because she got triggered or she got white as a ghost because guilt and shame, jumped into play. Turns out he was the one that was betrayed. Now, he and I worked 18 months, which, oh my gosh, people are like, 18 months? You mean it's going to take me 18 months to heal? No. We worked 18 months because we needed to get through the betrayal. We needed to go through the separation. We needed to go through the dating. Now, dating, you'll hear a wonderful presentation by Stephanie on dating after betrayal. We then subsequently went through engagement and marriage. He got remarried, and my husband and I went to his wedding in May, and it was his turn to run up to me, Vanessa, you're here, and pull in another couple. She's a betrayal recovery specialist. So it went full circle. And then I had the opportunity to be on a podcast, which is Real Men Feel. realmenfeel.org is a wonderful organization for men, specifically on a variety of topics. But I got to be a speaker, a podcast guest, which I absolutely loved. And Max found me through my website again. But with Max, I only had to do 5 sessions with him. And then he was good. He was self-proclaimed good. And I really have a great relationship with my clients in terms of I reach out to them a month after we stop working together, 3 months later, 6 months later, a year later, just to check in. How are you doing? What's going on? And I recently reached out to him to see how he's doing. It's now a year later. And he's like, it's great. Our marriage is better than ever. And he says, I'm so grateful. But for him, it took 5 sessions. So what's the difference? 18 months versus 5 sessions. So what that comes into is, how did we do it? And that's something called the hindsight window. It is a theory that Eric Edmeades developed, and I stumbled across it in 2016. Brilliant. I absolutely loved it. And though it wasn't a theory to apply to betrayal, I apply it to betrayal very, very much. And I was so grateful for this theory. So what is this theory? The theory is it's the time between something devastating happens and the time you're able to let go of it and realize that it's a gift. It's an opportunity. You're better for the experience. It's the window of time between those two things. And for some, it's a short window. For Max, it was a really short window. But for John, it was a much longer window. For my grandparents who went through the war, they have 30-year window where they just won't let go of something. I'm not talking about forgetting it. I'm talking about making peace with it, forgiving yourself, trusting yourself, moving forward in a very productive way. So I found that I too, as I was going through my recovery, I was suddenly grateful. And I've said it several times. I've actually said it both within the Facebook group that Kaylee has, which is Humans Navigating Betrayal, also on my Instagram. And it's the one post on my Instagram that got like, people went completely nuts over this concept of, wait a second, you're saying that you're grateful for the betrayal. Now, don't misunderstand me. I don't wish betrayal on anyone. I don't. It's the worst gut-wrenching thing that you have to go through. But there is beauty on the other side. There absolutely is. You step into who you were meant to be. And again, whether your window's really short and you suddenly see the blessing, or your window's much longer. And what we want to do is we want to start working on closing that window sooner than later. Still at your own pace, but knowing that you have that opportunity to kind of close that window. So how do we close it? How do we start working on it? How do we see the gift and opportunity in the betrayal? Well, we need to clean up our past. We need to look at the present, and then we also need to look at the future. So I have a couple of formulas for you. So here's the emotional formula for you. Resentment and regret in your past equals fear in your future. Because you so resent or you regret the betrayal, you didn't see it coming, whatever it is, it suddenly manifests itself into fear in the future. Whereas how much gratitude you have for your past will show up as faith in the future. So I want to say that again. I want that to sink in for you. So resentment and regret in the past equals fear in your future. Whereas how much gratitude you have for your past will show up as faith in the future. So we need to clean up the past. Now, sometimes, a lot of times, the betrayal that you're experiencing right at this moment isn't the first betrayal. There could be betrayal in your childhood. Your best friend, suddenly not your best friend. The teacher that you really, really liked said something to you or punished you in a way that you just suddenly didn't like them anymore. That favorite uncle that you always hung out with just suddenly became cranky and irritable, and you were too young to understand what was happening. There are lots of different ways that betrayal intersects in your life. And if you haven't cleaned up those situations in the past, this betrayal feels really heavy. It feels so big. It feels momentous that you can't even wrap your head around. And for me, that was exactly what was going on for me. I had all of these little itty bitty betrayals in the past that I never even identified as betrayal. They were just stuff that happened. And I just assumed it happens to everybody. Why should I make a big deal about it? But when my betrayal, my big betrayal, my betrayal with my beloved happened, it all came flooding back. It absolutely did. But a lot of those betrayals in the past, we see through the eyes of a child. We see through eyes of innocence. We don't have that wisdom that we have now that allows us to pivot just ever so slightly to see it from their point of view. Yeah, Uncle Marty became really cranky around me. Well, now I know that he had dementia. So his dementia caused him to be cranky, not my behavior, not how I was, not something that I did. See that pivot, how that kind of just intersects and changes ever so slightly. So what we need to do is go back into the past, just a little bit, not anything really, really heavy, but look at those individual situations and just pivot them and clean them up. Make peace with them. Because, oh yeah, that situation happened. Oh, here's a little bit of a pivot. Now I've cleaned that up. Now I've let that go. And now I can move on. So what we want to do is we want to look for the patterns of behavior that you have and those emotional triggers that come up, because they do. We know they do. They happen all the time, especially after betrayal. And we want to learn how to respond rather than react. So we tend to react just as Dave did, where he, looking at the text message, walked into his bedroom, got his gun out of his gun safe. That was his reaction. That was his immediate reaction. We want to learn to respond. We want to learn to pause for a moment to allow our body to settle so that we can think clearly with our minds and our heart so that they can be connected to each other and we can pause. So we need to almost say to ourselves, what emotion do I need to have at this particular moment that will serve me? Because rage and anger and is not going to serve me. But calm, yeah, I could find it as an app in the App Store, but is calm going to serve me now? Is that what's going to happen? So we want to go back and find those moments that were awful. That were awful. They were. And sometimes you have to pull them out. Yes, but they were awful. I'm not talking really anything really, really big and heavy, but just those little itty bitty things, those nuances from our childhood. You know, the bully that would, take your lunch money or whatever it might be in a small context, and really start working through those just to clean it up. I'm going to give you a perfect example. My daughter got her driver's license. Oh, she couldn't wait to drive. Oh, she couldn't wait. The second she was able to, she took her driver's test, she passed it, and she was like, I need car keys, and we were like, because as parents, we know that once our children start driving, oh, that feeling is just right there. And we wear our hearts right here, right here. Our hearts are outside of ourselves. And 6 weeks after getting her driver's license, I get a call and I hear her crying, like sobbing. And she's like, Mom, all the airbags deployed. What? And then the rational side of me is like, she's calling me, not a state trooper, not an EMS. She's calling and she's crying. So that means that she's coherent, that she isn't injured, she's not knocked unconscious. She's crying and she's trying to get the message to me. And I immediately, jumped to, you've had your license 6 weeks. You have a car for 6 weeks. I know that you're okay. So the rational side of me is like, she's okay enough. Now I'm like thinking the car, the insurance, the this, the that. And I'm going through a whole litany of things. Meanwhile, I have my daughter on the phone who's crying. And she's like, all the airbags deployed. But Amy and Janice and Mary are okay. And then suddenly I'm like, oh my God, she had other people in the car with her. So now I'm thinking, oh my God, all these other parents and everything else. And so I tell her, we're going to stay on the phone and I'm going to come to you. We're going to stay on the phone and I'm going to come to you. I pull up to the scene and I knew it wasn't bad. Why? Because 4 girls are sitting on the guardrail and they're each looking at their phones. So I knew the girls were okay. They were fine. Then I look at the car and I'm walking around the car and I'm walking around the car and I'm walking around the car. I can't find any damage. I'm like, what's going on? Kind of thing. So the fire chief comes over to me, because now the adult is here. And he's like, Mrs. Cardenas, this is the strangest thing. She tapped the guardrail in the exact spot on the bumper that causes all of the airbags to deploy. And I'm like, are you serious? He goes, it is like a 1 in a million chance of being able to do that. And your daughter did that. really? So now I'm somewhat relieved. I'm still relieved that my daughter's okay and everything else, but now the car is theoretically totaled because all of the airbags go off. And my daughter, sees me and is fearful of like my reaction and stuff. And I walk over to her, I give her a hug. Oh, I'm so glad you're okay. I then hug all her other friends. I'm like, is everybody okay? And they were startled, but then there was a lot of giggling, like, this just happened. And then suddenly they're taking selfies with the car because the car has no damage, but all the airbags went off. And then it was this whole big thing. Now, meanwhile, my husband comes. Now, my husband has a completely different reaction. He's all, can't wait. And I pull him aside and I look at him and I go, do you see how calm I am? I need you to be calm. I need you to calm. That's what your daughter needs at this moment. She needs the calmness to come over you. Why? Because we need to have faith in her in the future that she's going to tell us anything. Anything that happens based on our reaction right at this moment will dictate whether she tells us or not. And now, years later, our daughter will tell us everything. Some things my husband doesn't want to know, but he takes it and he hears it and he's supportive. And she knows that. And why does she know that? Because that situation, that moment in time, when you were in the present moment and you paused and you let yourself feel the emotions wash over you and then decide what emotion is going to serve me right now and into the future. So here is how it works. This is the hindsight window theory. How it works is an event happens to you. You're fired. You take it in, you take a breath, you pause, you think about it. Now, sometimes thinking about it can be 10 minutes. Sometimes thinking about it can be 30 seconds and you've got it all in your head. You figure out the emotion that you're having and the emotion that you should have. Now, should is a careful word. I know a lot of people say should is shit on, but what you feel would better serve you. What's the emotion that will better serve you in this moment and moving forward? And then know that the more gratitude that you can find in this moment, which will be your past, will be faith for you in the future. Thank you so much. Do appreciate the opportunity to be able to share the hindsight window theory with you. While we catered it more to men, you have the opportunity, women, to actually use it as well, just as I did. Kaylee, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Vanessa, oh my goodness, an incredible storyteller, an incredible teacher in so many ways. I loved how you brought that forward. And if you guys have questions for Vanessa, you're welcome to pop those into the chat right now while I, share some of my thoughts. But I loved a lot of what I heard today. You saw me writing so many good things. Certainly loved how you started with this concept of when you listen to learn so that you can help others, you're going to absorb that information in such a different way. And I imagine you discovered that in your journey, right? As you kind of knew God told you in a way, or you told God like, oh, well, if I learn this, I'm going to have to tell somebody else. And so you experienced that and modeled that for us so beautifully. And I think I experienced that as well as a part of my story. So I loved that. And really just everything that the power of gratitude. And like you mentioned, sometimes self-care and things like gratitude can be weaponized, but when you're ready for it, there's just like a principle there, this foundational principle around gratitude and the power of it. So good. I mean, so many beautiful things stated, and I appreciate you and all of your work and the energy that you bring to this work, because we just need it so much. So I'm not seeing very many questions right now, but you had mentioned maybe doing a little meditation with us. Do you think you could do that with us for us?
I would love the opportunity to do a meditation. Actually, this came from Eric Edmeades as well, in a different realm that I saw him in. And again, a lot of things when you go through betrayal, and thank you so much for pointing out, when you're a student, I'm a perpetual student. I'm learning all the time. I'm reading all the time. And I don't even necessarily read things on betrayal, but they become about betrayal.
It applies.
It ties in for me. I can read something in the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times about saving and techniques for saving, and I'm like, oh my God, I could so use this for techniques for getting through betrayal. This is priceless, because my mindset is always related to how can I best serve? How can I best give information to others so that they don't feel alone, that they don't feel this tremendous weight on their shoulders? Because that's what it is. Betrayal just takes, 1,000-pound dumbbell and just puts it on your back. And you succumb to it. And sometimes you need somebody next to you that says, let me lighten your load. Let me take this off for a little bit. And so when Eric did this wonderful meditation for something completely unrelated to betrayal, I was like, oh no, I'm so going to use this for betrayal. So I welcome the opportunity to share it with everyone else. As Matthew McConaughey says, all right. In the interest of time, I invite you to sit back, relax, take a nice deep breath. Sit back, relax, and take another deep breath. And as you take your third deep breath, I want you to let your muscles go. Breathe in. Release. And I want you to fall into that nice, deep relaxation. You are in a nice, safe space. I want you to know that you are in a nice, safe space. Let it go. We're going to travel into your future. I don't know what day exactly it is. I don't know what month exactly it is. But I know that it is the day that you wake up and you realize you are enjoying the relationship of your dream. It is that day. I don't know if it's tomorrow. I don't know if it's 5 years from now or next week, but you woke up that morning and you woke up with gratitude and you realized that you are in the relationship of your dreams. And as you revel in the gratitude and the appreciation and the joy of being in the relationship of your dreams on that day, all I want you to do, remember. I want you to remember what you did to get here. I want you to remember the times that you forgave genuinely. I want you to remember the times you did the things that maybe you didn't necessarily want to, because that's the price of admission. Because you loved that person. You compromised. You spoke your truth. You listened to your partner's truth. and you lovingly left behind things that no longer serve you. I want you to remember the times when you focused on all the things you loved about that person instead of all the little things you ignored in the beginning. I want you to remember how you arrived on this day in your most incredible, amazing relationship. Think about some of the things that you changed about yourself. Maybe there was that day. Do you remember way back during the Love You conference? You learned all the incredible stuff from Kaylee and Kendra, Stephanie and Bill, Tammy and Michelle, and Nathaniel. What did you change in your life after that day? Why was your life so different? How did you create this unbelievable relationship? What did you change about yourself? Be the change you want in your relationship. What did you do differently? What did you allow differently? Who were you attracted to? Or how did you create this relationship? And I want you to keep this consideration going for the next week or so. I want you to remember this relationship. It's in the future. And I want you to remember how you got here and keep remembering how you got here. Because in the future, in the next week or 2 weeks, as you go back to old patterns, I want you to remember that you don't do that anymore. The beautiful thing about the human consciousness, the beautiful thing about deep meditation, the beautiful thing about altered universe is that humans have the unique capacity to go out into the future and remember their past, which is actually their future. How did you do this? And as you prepare to come back to where we are now, as you bring your consciousness back into your space, retaining the memories and the skills and the realization of how you created your unbelievable, loving relationship, I want you to slowly ease your eyes open.
Wow. How powerful. I know I'll be referring to this for a long time, encouraging people to use this meditation. Thank you so much, Vanessa. And then again, if you guys are listening in and you have some questions, we've got a little bit of time before our next and last speaker of the day. So we have one question. She says, but what about my son has never trusted me? Even in his hard times, I was their faith. Any advice?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's mother, son, or father,
Yeah, I think it's a mother son. Yep.
mother, son. It's a very interesting dynamic. It's similar to husband and wife. It's brick by brick. It's layer by layer. It's asking a question and holding on to that answer and being trustworthy towards them and not invading their space. You haven't indicated how old he is.
So then she does say that he's an adult now.
He's an adult now.
And still has a hard time. Still having a hard time. Yeah.
It's an interesting dynamic. Communication is definitely key. And just putting the onus on yourself. Coming to him, I feel that somewhere along the line, I did something that changed our relationship, and I would love to know if you could share that with me. If there is something I need to apologize for, something, and I've said this to my daughter quite often, actually. I ask her quite often, is there anything that I've done past or recently where I've stuck my foot in my mouth and shoved it really far, or something that in 5 years from now, you're going to bring to my attention that I had no idea whatsoever, that when I came into the room with you and your girlfriends and I asked you, XYZ, you were embarrassed and offended in front of your friends.
Right.
And you remember that moment as if it just happened yesterday. Meanwhile, I don't even recall it. I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Or with me and my son, there was one moment where, I knocked on the bathroom. He was in the shower. I knocked on the bathroom door and, I walked in to grab something off the counter and he completely lost his mind. And I'm like, you're behind a shower curtain. I don't see anything. And it's not like I haven't seen any of it. You were a baby kind of thing. And he's like, yeah, but I'm an adult now, and he was very upset over that. And had he kept quiet and not blurted out that anger that he had towards me, we wouldn't have been able to resolve it. So there might be an underlying thing there that you don't even know. But if you come forward with humility and wanting a conversation and don't defend, that's my one suggestion is
Yes.
that if he gets talking, your best response is mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You want to encourage him to keep talking because eventually he'll get to the thing, but you cannot defend yourself.
No.
Don't defend yourself. Let him speak. Let him speak his truth. Because then at that moment, you can acknowledge, wow, that must have hurt. I didn't realize that. Don't defend yourself because then you're just going to battle it out. And you don't want to battle it out. You want to clear the air and move on to a good relationship. I hope that helps.
That is excellent, excellent advice. And I think this isn't the topic of today, but mothering after betrayal. It's especially an adult man that you're mothering, right? Because we mother our babies. We come haunt them after we're dead. We're gonna come try to mother them after we're dead. we do that, and it's so difficult, but such excellent advice, and all the more difficult not to get defensive, but excellent advice. There's one last question here before we take a little break and move on to our next speaker. We have this question that says, any tips on cleaning up the past, especially past experiences I want to rewrite now, that I know what the truth is? So I color everything with the shadow of betrayal, happy or sad.
Yeah, that definitely happens. Boy, we see through the lens of betrayal. We take off those rosa-colored glasses and we suddenly put on, oh yeah.
This is the dark sunglasses we put on.
They come on very, very much so. And it is very challenging. It is absolutely very challenging. My suggestion is take them off for a brief period of time. They're comforting to you at the moment. Betrayal suddenly becomes like a blanket around us. We grow comfortable in the uncomfortableness, and then it becomes comforting. And that's why we always need to be very careful about becoming addicted to the victimhood sympathy that we get. So you're seeing everything through the lens of betrayal. Now you're seeing situations where you didn't see it as betrayal, but now you see it as betrayal. Now we need to clean it up a little bit. So my suggestion to you is to look at it, not in it, but look at it from an outside perspective. Almost do a play-by-play. If the situation is, two girlfriends and, I'm not going to be your best friend anymore kind of thing and whatnot. Don't get into the memory of it as yourself. Look at it from an outside perspective, almost on a screen, like you're watching it, so that you can see the whole thing rather than just seeing from your perspective. And that will allow you to see it see it just ever so slight, because all you need is that 1 degree pivot and suddenly it's clean. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, now I get it. And you move on to the next thing. But chip at it, pull on the thread of that tapestry ever so slightly. It's going to hurt. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel that emotion through it, but let it wash through you. Don't suppress it, and don't dismiss it. Let it wash over you and allow your strength to come through. Great question. Very good question. I wish we had more time for it, because we could spend a
We could do a whole
hour
presentation on that.
just on that. Very
Absolutely.
very
Absolutely. Well, Vanessa, thank you so much for joining us. And again, I know Vanessa's mentioned this, but she is an incredible moderator over at our Humans Navigating Betrayal Facebook group. Vanessa, I know you've mentioned it already, but understandingear.com. Is that the best place to get a hold of you? And then on socials, Instagram, Facebook, and then in that Facebook group as well. So if you have resonated and felt connected as I have today with Vanessa, you can get a hold of her and ask her your questions and learn what she has to offer and could support you through what you're going through right now. Now we're going to take a little break. We'll see you guys in a couple of minutes. Thank you so much again, Vanessa.